Hi, welcome to episode 85 of The Corner of Knit and Tea. I'm Laura, also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Twitter and Instagram. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode's show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Stash Buckler Adventures in Yarn, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi! How are you? It is Sunday, April 24th. It has been a busy weekend here. I have a little bit of knitting to show you, a little bit of spinning, and then I want to talk about the big event this weekend, Ply Away. I've got my Ply t-shirt on, which was the big spinning retreat that happened here in Kansas City, and I will do a whole bit at the end about what I've experienced so far. It is actually early on Sunday morning, about 9 a.m., and I am recording now because I'm going to go take a class this afternoon. So with Abby Frankmont. So I'm sort of squeezing everything in, and I just thought that I would definitely get a podcast out and get to talk to you today. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in without too much chitty chatty because I have lots of stuff to tell you. We'll start with the tea. A lovely viewer of the podcast contacted me and asked if she could send me some tea. She wanted to send me some of the Yogi Egyptian licorice, which I have heard of. And so she sent me a couple tea bags. So that is what I am drinking today. That was Musings and Motion. So thank you very much. And she actually has a podcast as well called let me pull out the card. It's called Tome Time Reading and Knitting, where she and her son discuss books and what she's knitting. So that is the Yogi Tea Egyptian Licorice, and I am drinking it in my Batman Skills mug. It is actually a little warm today for hot tea. I meant to mix up another batch of iced tea, but I haven't quite finished the strawberry basil from last week. So I am working on that this afternoon, and next week I will have another iced tea for you. So I just decided to do a cup of something hot, and actually I'm probably going to end up letting it cool and drinking it kind of on the cold side, because it is quite warm here today, but I did want to try this. It smells amazing. That is delicious. Anyone who likes black licorice, this is a must. It is nice and spicy. So I will have to see about getting more of that. I added just a touch of sugar and it is perfect. So let's get to the knitting. There hasn't been a ton of knitting progress this week because I have been just busy, and I actually had some negative knitting progress with one of my projects. This is I put a photo on Instagram. The podcasting table is like piled high with stuff, and I'm trying not to knock it all over. I had a little trouble with my Frost at Midnight last week. As you remember, I was almost finished with the body, and I was going to try and get to the yoke cast on. And so I finished the body, and then I did the provisional cast on for the yoke and went probably half a dozen rows and looked at it and was like, this thing is so huge. I could fit like 2 of my arms in one of the sleeves. So I had a moment where I, almost threw it across the room, because that's kind of what I want to do when stuff like that happens. And then I sat and thought about it for a while, and I decided that I would rip back to where I finished the body, and I would use I would go down 1 needle size. So originally I was doing 3.0 millimeters on this, and I moved down to 2.75, and then I also dropped a size in the yoke and modified the arms a little bit. So I will end up putting all of these notes on my project page. If it ends up working. I hope. This is, like I said, the Frost at Midnight pattern by Kate Davies. It is a yoked cardigan with beadwork, and I'm actually ready to start the beadwork. I have not gotten to it because I have been at the conference the last couple days, but I have, it looks vaguely like a sweater. Like I said, I finished the body, and then I have, I provisionally cast it on for the sleeves and did all the shaping rows and everything to get myself ready to where I am about to do the beaded section. And this is the Monostil Uruguay Merino yarn. It is a lace weight superwash single. It is beautiful. This is the colorway Arboretum. It is a beautiful semi-solid, well, it looks a little variegated. It's a beautiful green, and it has everything from kind of a foresty olivey green to more minty, and I just think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. And I am excited to start the beading this week. There are 26 rows of beading, and there is beading on both sides, knit and purl. So that will keep me busy. I am hoping that I'll have finished that next week. And then I'm going to do all the trim, which is the picot button band and the picot collar. And then I will see what I have left and move to working on the sleeves. So I am very excited about this one, although like I said, I didn't get too much done this week. I will say as a virtue of, or by virtue of having to knit and reknit the yoke section, the yarn actually held up beautifully when I had to frog it back a little bit. And I was a little worried because it's a single, but it held up beautifully. And so that is another positive for the yarn. So that is what I will continue to work on this week, and hopefully next week I will have the interesting part, the beaded part, to show you. I'm hoping maybe I could finish with the yoke. We'll have to see. I hope I will have more knit time this week. So that is the first project that I have been working on, and again, that is living in my Loop of London bag. So the second project that I have been working on is also one you know about. It is a shawl for our knit along. It is the Beach Cove shawl by Anne Podlesak, and the shawl that I am knitting goes by many names. Ozark Orgy, Party Cove, all kinds of things. I told you that last week. And I have gotten a little bit of work in on this one this week. To be honest, I don't remember where I was, but I am now in the eyelet section, and as you can see, the pinks are still changing and doing different colors. And I am gonna sort of wing this because I have more yardage than the pattern calls for. And so I am gonna do extra eyelet sections and then move on to the final. It's a little bit of lace and then a picot bind off. And I'm gonna hope that I get it right so that I have enough yardage to finish and I don't have to do a lot of ripping. But that is what I am working on. This is for our shawl knit along in the group. Again, that runs April 1st through May 31st. It is a joint knit along with Anne Podlesak of Willy Wonka Fibers and the Willy Wonka Fibers podcast. And for more details, you can check in my group or in her group. So I am making some progress on that. It's a little slow, but it is looking beautiful and I love knitting with it. And it takes priority after the Frost at Midnight cardigan, but I'm getting a little bit done. So I actually have a new cast on this week, and I wasn't really supposed to do that, except for the fact that I knew that I would be at the convention this weekend, and both of those knits are patterned knits and require some concentration, and I really, really needed something that did not require any concentration, so I cast on for a pair of socks, which you also know I have been dying to do, but yeah. So I am doing the Vanilla is the New Black pattern, which is by, let me lift my tea and look, it is by Annie Fletcher, and it is a really interesting looking pattern. Most of it is like a vanilla sock, but the interesting part is in the heel. It's got some ribbing in the heel where it just kind of expands, and then the heel turn is kind of interesting looking. So I decided it would be a good one to do because I didn't figure I would get super, super far, and I figured maybe I'd do the leg of a sock. And I have some beautiful self-striping. This is the Show Me yarn that I showed you that I bought at Knitting in the Heartland. It is a beautiful self-stripy yarn, and it is in their boot heel base. It's Show Me yarn, and the colorway is Aunt Gigi. And I haven't gotten a ton done, but I had some time to work on it yesterday, and I started my sock. So I got a little bit of the cuff and a little bit of the leg done, and this is exactly how it's going to self-stripe up, and I just love the colors. I am going to knit socks for myself, and then if I have enough in leftovers, I'm going to knit socks for Miss Roxy. So yes, that is a little bit of what I've been doing. I will take that with me today, although I don't know that I'll have a lot of time to work on it. And these will definitely get a backseat to the other projects. I just needed something that I could do without concentrating on it. And a roundy sock, particularly in self-striping for a little bit of interest, is perfect for when you don't want to, you need a project without a lot of concentration. So that is my third project, and hopefully I will speed through the rest of this Frost at Midnight sweater, because there are a million things I want to knit, including more socks, and I would love to see a lot of progress on these. The other thing going on this week is from today, Sunday, April 24th, through next Saturday, April 30th. It is Blanket Madness Week, which is add squares to your blanket. And I am going to try and add a few squares to my blanket. I know I have a million other things to do, but I love to play along. I currently have 90 squares on my blanket, and I am wondering if I can get to 100 this week. So we will have to see how my week goes and what kinds of crafty time I have, and I guess we'll just see. So let's move on to spinning. I know that's been kind of a quick jump, but let's do it, because then I can talk to you a little bit about Ply Away. So I have not even had a chance to wind it off the bobbin. I actually plied it last night at the spin-in. This is the braid I showed you last week. It was Southern Cross Fiber. It was International Wool of Mystery. It was a grab bag, and I said I thought maybe it felt like Corriedale, and it was in reds and greens. And what I did is I spun it fractally. I divided the braid in half lengthwise, and I tore one half into small strips for short color repeats, and then the other half I spun straight through. So I have lots of areas where you can tell like the greens are almost the same, and some where the greens mix, and then I have underneath there are areas of like pure red, and then there are all kinds of like red mixes into green and stuff. So I think this will be a really cool yarn. I need to pull it off and wash it and see what happens. This was destined to be for the shop, and it may still. I need to see how it comes out. There were a few areas where it looked like I had over twisted a little bit, so if I'm not super happy with it, I may not list it in the shop, or I may list it at a discount, because it's not my best work. So I just have to see how this comes out. It is, like I said, it's probably Corriedale, maybe Shetland. It is a little bit rougher. It would probably be good for sturdy boot socks, and that is probably what I will do with it if I decide not to list it in the shop. So we'll just have to see. So I finished this one last night and had a little time at the spin-in and went ahead and started something new. And the something new that I started was actually something that I bought at the market this week. And it is Huckleberry Knits. And it is a braid of Targhee, 4 ounces, in the colorway Wishing Well. So, and I have already started to pull it apart, so it's kind of messy, but here are the colorways. It has purples and a little bit of blue and pinks and some browns, and it is just gorgeous. And I didn't pull the bobbin off the wheel because it's just got a little bit on it, but that is what I am spinning this week, and this one will be destined for the shop. It is going to be springy and poofy because that's what Targhee does, and I am really excited about this one. I think this one's going to be great. So I'm sorry I didn't get to show it to you when it was not all pulled apart, but that is what I am going to work on this week. So I said it was going to be kind of short on things that I worked on because I didn't have a ton. So let's go into Ply. Ply Away this is its first year. It is a conference hosted by J.C. Boggs, who runs Ply Magazine, and I guess it's hosted by Ply Magazine, with generous support from a variety of sponsors, including quite a few of the big wheel companies. Schacht was there yesterday. Mr. Schacht was there. We also had Louette was there. We had some representatives from the Woolery with a variety of brands of wheels, and then we also had Yarn Barn, which is local to Kansas City, and they brought a variety of their wheels. Hanson Mini Spinner also, Hanson took a booth and sold quite a few mini spinners this weekend. So those were the sponsors, and there were a few others, and then there were a bunch of lovely booths from a variety of mostly fiber related, but there was also quite a bit of yarn there. So there was just all kinds of shopping opportunities. I drove over briefly on Thursday to pick up my registration packet and goodie bag, and the goodie bag is amazing. It has all kinds of little fiber samples that I would love to play with, and some wool wash and some coupons, and just it was a full goodie bag, and it was absolutely lovely. So Friday I went over and I took a full day class with Amy King, who is the owner of Spunky Eclectic, and she has also written at least one book on spinning, and I'm not sure, there may be a couple more. And the class that I took from her was how to spin sock yarn, or how to spin the ideal sock yarn. So she began by talking about some of the things that make up a good sock yarn, primarily that it is soft but incredibly sturdy, and how to get those characteristics in your yarn, both in terms of the fibers that you might seek out and also how you might want to spin it. So it was an interesting class. She had us do a variety of spinning techniques, some of which required a distinct amount of concentration. She had us looking for one of the ways that she really enjoys spinning sock yarn is what she calls light and tight. And what she has you do is spin your singles with a very light amount of twist and then ply them with a tighter amount of twist. The light amount of twist in the singles keeps the yarn fairly soft and will make for soft socks, but the tight twist will also make for sturdy socks and socks that wear well. So there were quite a few exercises to try and teach us how to spin with a very light twist, which is not something that I often do. In fact, I have told you in the past that when I spin for singles, where the name of the game is low and slow, you know, use your big whirl and treadle slowly and keep the twist very light, that I generally spin my singles as they are and then run them back through the other way to remove a little bit of the twist, which is totally a cheating method. I mean, it achieves the same thing, but it's totally a cheating method because I don't change what I am doing. So that section was particularly challenging for me in terms of concentration. And one of the things that I think I took away from the class was a little bit better at how to spin singles, such that next time I may not need to use my cheating method. So then we also spun and plied a variety of yarns. Amy had us experiment a little bit with spinning. Now, normally when you spin Z, which is clockwise, and you ply S, which is counterclockwise. And she had us experiment with a variety of yarns, particularly plied yarns, using some S twist and some Z twist, and then combining them together, which made for some interesting yarns. And she suggested that we try them and see how our socks were. So I got quite a bit of information. It was a long day and I was very tired at the end of it just from concentrating on exactly which techniques we were using. But it was a wonderful class and I know that it has informed how I will spin in the future. I haven't decided exactly which parts of it I will take and apply to my own yarn, but it was definitely food for thought and I very much enjoyed taking the class. I managed to get out to lunch in the middle of the day and wander through the market a little bit, and I took a photo of the purchases that I made on day one, and I will show a few of those to you now. One of them is the fiber that I am spinning from Huckleberry Knits. I also found another braid of Huckleberry Knits that I really, really wanted, and this one is a Targhee silk, and it is in the colorway Black Sand, Black Sand Beach, and it is like black purples, reds and pinks, and then pops of this yellowy bright orange. And I just could not put it down. It looks a little bit like the other braid that I got, but I was so entranced with this. And actually, I was thinking about spinning this one up as a prize for the shawl knit along. So you will probably see me spinning this in the next couple weeks, but that was another braid from Huckleberry Knits that I couldn't resist. The final thing that I bought on Monday, and I was pretty good, I bought 3 braids in the marketplace. The final thing that I bought was a gradient set, and this one will definitely be for me, not for the shop. It is by Greenwood Fiberworks Hand-Dyed Roving. It is 50% yak, 50% silk, approximately 5 ounces in a gradient colorway called Twilight. and I'll try and angle it. Yep, that's pretty good. You can see it is teals to purples to black, and it is amazing. And I really think that what I will probably do is probably 2-ply all of these yarns, hope to spin super thin, and then knit myself a gradient shawl out of these. But I could not resist this kit, and several of my friends and I got stuck at this booth, and we came home with gradients. So that was definitely, it was not actually the Greenwood Fiberworks booth. I think it was North Carolina and Blue Mountain Spinnery, but they had so many different yarns from smaller indie dyers that it was a pleasure to shop there. So that was Friday at the conference. Saturday at the conference, I had not registered for any classes, so I decided I was just going to go up and meet people and hang out. And I got there about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I wandered the marketplace, and more things came home with me, which I will show you in just a moment. But I met some friends and had a nice lunch, and kind of hung out and knit and spun and just chatted. And then in the evening, there was the spin-in, which was from 6 to 11, and it was just bring your wheel, bring food and snacks, and hang out and spin. And it was amazing. We probably had 100+ people in the room, all different kinds of wheels, and everybody sort of hung out and spun, and we took some pictures, and there were some like raffle giveaway prizes, and it was just a great evening. I left about 9:30 last night and drove myself home. The venue is about an hour from my house, and I was so tired last night, and I was just like, oh, do I really have to drive home? But I cannot say what a pleasure it has been to have a fiber event in my own city, even though it is super fun to go away and stay in the hotel and be away from home. It is also nice to come home and sleep in your own bed. So I will show you what else I got yesterday. One of the booths that I definitely wanted to hit was the Topeka Twister. That is Jessica, and she is in my local spinning group. And she makes these amazing rologs that she sold out of right away. But I got this beautiful braid. Let me just wind it, kind of wrap it up so that I can show you. It is a beautiful braid called Blackberry Crumble. And she actually posted pictures of this on her Instagram. Probably, I think this might be one of her repeatable colorways because it's got to be like 3 or 4 months ago now. And I was like, oh, that one's really pretty. And I went and found it at the show. And so it had to come home with me. And this is, I'm sorry, it's called Citrus Blackberry Tart. And it is an 80/20 merino Tessa silk. So you will see me spin all of these probably in short order because they are just lovely. My final fiber purchase, and I did fall down and get a little bit of yarn, so there'll be some of that in a moment. My final fiber purchase was from a lovely booth called, oh, I cannot remember what it was called. I think it was Wild and Cotton. I posted a picture of it on Instagram, and it was run by the Tuft Woolens. Martha runs with Honden, and she does Tuft Woolens, and I got a few of her lotion bars in Sugar Skull and Red Currant and Mandarin, because I have heard wonderful things about them. And then they had a variety of indie dyers in their booth, and one of the things that they had was Frabjous Fibers, who I have spun before. And this braid, I don't know even why it spoke to me so much. It is browns and purples, and it is super soft looking, and it did speak to me. This is called the Opulence Blend. It is 30% superfine merino, 30% Tessa silk, 20% baby camel down, and 20% royal baby alpaca. So it is just soft as kittens, I tell you. And this one I'll definitely be spinning up, and it will probably even go into the shop. But it is so amazingly soft. I could not resist. So those were the fiber purchases. There were just a few yarn purchases. I know I wasn't supposed to purchase yarn. One of the vendors who came was October House. And I have been looking at October House's Etsy shop for a while now and have just never pulled the trigger. And mostly I was looking at their fiber, but then they had this display of their yarn, and it was all these solid colors of sock yarn, or semi-solid colors of sock yarn. And I went by on Friday and looked and dithered and said, okay, I won't do this now. And I came home and I thought about one particular skein of sock yarn all night, which means it was probably a good thing to go back and buy it. So I did. Again, this is October House Fiber Arts, and they absolutely could not be nicer in their booth. And the yarn that I picked up is called Pacific. It is on Sojourn Sock, which is superwash merino and nylon. And this is the braid that I could not get out of my head. And you cannot see it on the monitor. I will have to take a picture. Well, you can see it just a little bit. It is just a little bit semi-solid. It's got slightly lighter and darker parts. And I have been looking at knitting some patterned socks, and I generally buy beautiful variegated or speckled yarns that do not show patterns so well. So I decided that since I want to do some patterned socks, I would let myself buy this beautiful semi-solid yarn so that I could do some patterned socks soon. So again, that is from October House. And I will put links to all the shops that I purchased from in the show notes, like I did when I did the Knitting in the Heartland. So if there are vendors you want to check out, their shops may not be open yet if they close them to go to shows, but I will definitely put the links in there. And finally, this one was a total splurge because I had told myself I was completely done shopping, and then I saw this one. This is Yarn Geek Fibers. They had a beautiful booth, and she had a variety of lovely things, and I could not resist this. I think this was actually an accident. It is called Boxcar Gallery. It is on Super Geek, which is a Corriedale nylon fingering weight yarn, and it is lovely. And the regular colorway is pretty, it's got fiber all over it. The regular colorway is white with lots of speckles, and she said she accidentally dumped a whole bunch of pink in. Like she was starting to like ladle it out to, not ladle it out, but like shake it out to like speckle, because I think she drops the dye powder directly on the yarn. And she said, and I goofed, and a whole bunch of pink went in. And she's like, so I just did kind of a one-off. And there were a few skeins of this colorway. I assume it was like a batch. But I just could not resist because it's so pretty. And it's Corriedale, which I think will wear really well on socks. You know I like to spin Corriedale for socks. So that was what I bought. The last thing that I wanted to show you, and I should have showed it to you in the previous section, was the sock yarn that I spun. This is spun light and tight, and it is pretty squishy. It is Cheviot, which I usually find kind of scratchy, but this doesn't feel too scratchy. It has not been washed yet, but this was 2 ounces that she gave us to kind of play with, and I'm not sure what I will do with it, but it is kind of fun and squishy, and I enjoyed spinning it. So that is my report so far on Ply. Like I said, I am taking a spindle class this afternoon with Abby Frankmont, who wrote Respect the Spindle and essentially taught me to spin through her book and videos. So I am super excited, and I'm also a little nervous because she is a master spinner with the spindle, and as you know, I do not spindle very often. I'm hoping that my spindling, my rusty amateur spindling skills will not do me in here, but I am very excited to just sit and listen to her talk and hear what she has to say. The class is called Slower by the Hour, Faster by the Week, and the impression that I get is that it's a little bit about how to make the most of your spindling time, and my thought was, actually, I got all these little fiber samples from in the goodie bag, and my thought was that maybe I will want to spindle spin some of them and play around a little bit. So I packed a few of my favorite spindles, and we'll see how that goes this afternoon, and I can report on that a little bit more next week. So I guess that's all I have for you today. I will just once more plug our shawl knit along. There will be prizes. So if you are working on a shawl or interested in working on a shawl, you still have more than a month to join us. Come over to the Ravelry group and check it out. All the details are there, and links to all the appropriate threads and whatnot. And I will say, until I see you again, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!